All righty. So we are back. We are at episode 4 of the Bold Moves podcast. So I am your co-host, Matt Torres. I have my co-host, Rachel Staggs, and I've got my special guest, Mr. Matthew Cordova. How you doing, Matthew?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I am doing pretty good. So I know you as MJ, so you go by MJ,
MJ.
right? Okay, very cool. Just to fill you in, so MJ, I met at a BNI meeting, and first BNI meeting that I went to, I was trying to secure that that insurance spot, and I walk in, and Mr. Cordova was there, and it was very cool, because we both had some common, we both in the industry, so it was awesome. Can you kind of tell me a little bit about your background? Just kind of fill us in on on who Mr. Cordova is.
Mr. Cordova has been around a long time. So I've been in sales, in owning my own businesses I started in sales 40 years ago. I've done a variety of things as far as sales go. Most of my career was in advertising and marketing, for a real big company. Went into insurance in 2012 and kind of have wandered in and out of insurance since then. It's always been kind of a nice safety blanket when I needed to do something or was kind of in between things. I'd always land back in insurance just because it was comfortable and there's really no ramp up period. You can get going from day one. So it's kind of where I'm at. Did a lot of small business consulting, a lot of sales training, which is what I'm doing now, and working with actually an insurance company here locally, and then I have a few companies that I work with in Colorado.
Oh, wow. Even in Colorado.
Mm.
Well, that's cool. Interesting. So when I was talking with him, we had this conversation at BNI, and you were mentioning the sales training thing. And that kind of opened my eyes a little bit, because you were telling me some stuff, and I'm like, I feel like I should be paying for this, really, just the little tidbits that you were giving me. But I mean, how long have you been doing that? I mean, is this fairly recent, or have you been doing that a while?
The sales training I started in 2017. So in 2015, I sold 3 of my businesses that I had in Colorado, and I moved back to Arizona.
Yeah.
I got a job with a large consulting company doing sales training, and then it just wasn't quite a great fit. There were some things I thought that customers could use, and they were very strict about staying in my lane with what their program was. So kind of took the leap, and a couple of clients that I met through them wanted a little bit more custom. So they supported me in jumping into doing the consulting, and then through a couple introductions, I got in with a mortgage company, which ended up to be my largest customer. And so it kind of went from there. I jumped into that. I was very big in the mortgage and real estate industry. And then in 2021, I was calling on a client to try and do training for them. And they said, well, what'll it take for you to come and work for us? So I did that for 3 years and ran a really big real estate team.
Oh, wow.
And I've done that in and out where, if I have the time and capacity, I can go to work for a company and they understand that I need a little bit more flexibility than a normal person would, but also, I can help them deliver results in the time that I can put into it also. So it's been just a great experience. I've been really blessed in having some clients that have brought me on as an employee, but still allowed me to do other stuff outside of the company. And it's a win-win because I've helped them to grow, and I've still had the flexibility to stay attached to the training company that I built.
Hey, Rachel, I heard a key word there. I heard
a few.
Yeah, I heard a few. I've heard a few words. Do you want to jump in and kind of explain our whole premise of what we're doing, and kind of the risks and leaps and keywords that we saw?
And just because we are just now meeting each other, kind of introducing him into what I've done too. So I related so much to you saying you've fallen back on insurance. I was like, oh, same. So my career in insurance started out, my husband was getting out of the military. It was health related. So it was very quick of a discharge. We had 2 weeks of, okay, what are we going to do? So USA hired me at home office, and that was my first introduction to insurance, but writing all 50 states and also being able to add value to other military members because we know how it is. Like, so that empathy was definitely there. I was with them 2 years. And then I transitioned, like, wanted a different sales role. So Facebook was hiring, but for marketing experts. So doing their whole ad set and ad system of selling ads and teaching people how to best sell themselves, particularly on the meta platforms, Instagram and Facebook. So I realized I was interviewing all these marketing gurus. I realized, okay, none of these people have experience working anywhere. They just have good sales experience. But it kind of got me thinking, okay, if you combined those two in a perfect world, right? Had our training, had the experience, knew how to source hashtags, knew how to source the best and most trending sounds that are trending forward but already haven't reached their peak, right? Teaching people how to source in a new age way, marrying those old sales techniques. I grew up with a dad who sold 18-wheelers my whole life. So I grew up around other salesmen my entire life, sales jokes my entire life. And those jokes did not slap as well with my mom's school counselor friends, right? I couldn't get away with some of the things I could say in dad's office that I could with mom. And so very much so I realized, like, okay, how am I going to add value as this prissy little thing in a man's world, in a sales world? How can I show what I can do, right? My chops in my marketing and my sales techniques, because I'm completely different than the traditional sales model, even the traditional female salesperson, right? I don't do things the traditional way, and neither does he. And so I think we were inspired by the idea of interviewing other strong salespeople who maybe had an unorthodox way of coming into business, and maybe have taken a lot of different risks, maybe haven't had the traditional route of just success. And I made the joke about Michael Jordan that I wanted to interview people who've had those big rejections and made those rejections and overcoming objections their whole story. So I think that's something kind of like what you had started talking about and just how y'all have aligned. It seems like you have quite a few bold moves and different things that you've transitioned and done. What would you say, like in the last 5 years, was your biggest bold move or risk that you took?
Probably taking on that big real estate team. So I had some experience training certain aspects of real estate. And again, when you really segment out any business, you have what is the sort of the core knowledge of this is how you sell this widget. This is how you sell Facebook ads. This is how you sell cups or insurance. But there's the whole skill set of sales itself. And I think that most companies train on this is how you sell my widget.
I would agree.
And there's this gap between this is how you sell my widget and this is how you sell anything. This is how you influence behavior. This is how you influence decisions. So I was pretty comfortable in doing what I was doing, had a lot of flexibility. So it was kind of it was a little bit of a leap to take on a team of about 80 real estate agents.
It's a lot.
Having limited knowledge of the actual real estate process. So I went ahead and got licensed, went through all of the training courses that I could find as far as real estate gurus teaching how to sell real estate so that I could kind of marry that with what I really believed in and the approach that I take to it. So, because that was going from sort of golfing 4 times a week and, waking up when I wanted to wake up, working when I wanted to work to, all right, now I have an office to show up to. And, I had about 80 agents, but also had 6 staff members. And so,
Wow.
Making sure those staff members were contributing and doing what they were supposed to do. And so I went from a little bit of structure to a lot of structure really quickly, which the last time I had a real job was probably, I don't know.
This is my first time having a real job in like 4 years. It's different.
Probably since the early 2000s, mid 2000s was the last time I had a real job.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a big adjustment.
It is, because there's so much risk on yourself, but there's also so much personal control too with owning your own business and doing your own thing versus maybe feeling gatekept in some ways by the constraints of a very Fortune 100, Fortune 500 company. They have their compliance, they have their technicalities. And when you are a big thinker, it's hard to be within the red tape. I feel like we struggle, I think, with that in general too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I recently got offered an opportunity, a position, but it was very very limited, as far as like, what you can do in your day. And for me, like, clock in, clock out, like 9 to 5, like I don't I can't really thrive in that. I need to kind of be out and about and just basically like connecting with people. Not like tied to a phone, all day, every day, So it's just crazy. Are you good at golf? You said relative. Yeah.
That means he's good. If he said it like that, because I say I can hang, and that means that means what it means.
Dude,
that means he's good.
Yeah. I need.
He's being humble.
I need to learn more. I'm horrible at golf. Like I said, I can. Like somebody asked me, "Are you good?" It's like I can hit the ball. I can't like really kind of control where it goes. So I'm like, yeah, it's we'll have to show me a few things with it. Yeah. Well, no, because that's the funny thing, like, because you mentioned that, and like that's a big part of like just business, and like a lot of deals
literally learned for that reason.
Yeah,
only that reason.
No, like a lot of deals get made on the golf course. Like that's a real thing. You know what I mean? And like that's difficult for me, who's not very like athletic. I did marching band like in high school. You know what I mean? That's drum corps. Like so.
Still.
Yeah, I know. You don't meet too many people like like doing business, like talk about music and drum corps and stuff. You know what I mean? But like, yeah, I always wanted to learn like actually how to like play golf, not just for the fact of like connecting with people like in in the business world, but like actually learning how to do it. Because like that sounds fun, and then you get to like go out and like actually connect with people, and because I'm sure you like golf, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, like if someone asks you, "Hey, let's go play around in golf," they're let's do it. Like
very rarely is the answer no.
Yeah, see, I'm gonna learn how to play golf, and then we're gonna go play golf. Like that's gonna be
advice from a girl from London. I took 3 lessons.
Yeah.
Me and Travis took 3 lessons, and we went to a golf pro, and so that he broke down our swing, and then because of how you think, you're such a technical thinker, they showed us an app of like where we're messing up, the exact moment we're messing up, where our hands should be. This is what. So broke it down on like a trajectory with new age technology. I was like, oh, okay. Interesting. Pretty cool. From the nerd side of both of our brains, like, wow, this is really satisfying, because he was like, he called Travis Popeye. He's like, you're olive oil. He's like, y'all couldn't have more different problems. He's like, you're like hyperextended. You're doing things with your wrists I've never even seen before. That's what he told me. And then he said, and you're just like a clunky baseball player. He's like, I got a lot of work to do. But he did. He straightened him out. And like, he's never had control of the ball. He can go yard, he can rope it, but he, like him, is all over the place. I can keep it down the middle, but I'm a girl. I'm having to learn how to put power behind myself, completely different. So it was funny.
Huh.
We had fun, though.
Yeah.
And we did 3 lessons with him. It wasn't too bad. It was pretty reasonably priced.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. But interesting. I'm from Texas. I moved here like 2 months ago.
What part?
San Antonio.
Beautiful city.
I love it. I miss the food, probably the most part, and obviously my family, but my family comes to visit. So like my brother has an investment guy that he works for on the side. He's also in real estate. And so he comes to Phoenix like every 2 months, and my mom's coming next week. So I'm like, they're coming. They're coming to visit now.
Dude, I drove through Texas one time. So like, for I don't think I ever said this, still told this story. So like, I'm in the military, and for when I commissioned, I had to go through my, basic officer, course, and it was in Georgia because I was a signal officer. So I had to go, across Georgia. Buddy of mine, we were like, hey, let's just drive over there, because they weren't going to give us rental cars unless we brought our own car. And I'm like, dude, that's like 2,000 miles. I'm like, all right, I got, dude with me. We're going to roll out there. And, so I had to plan the trip, and, there's like stops along the way. And so, like pick little spots to, go and stay at a hotel and just like crash for the night and then pick up the next day. And, I had no idea about Texas, and I'm just like Googling stuff and finding the cheapest things. And I found this one spot, like apparently Odessa, Texas is like a really bad part of Texas.
It's not great.
I didn't know that. So I booked this cheap hotel. And so, we rolled in, we got all our duffel bags in the car and stuff, and like the place looks pretty shady. Like there's people, like it's an outdoor hotel. Like there's people hanging out outside, sitting, watching us. And, again, like we're two Army guys, and we got all of our gear, like, lots of value in our car. And my buddy, he was an ex-cop. He used to be like, a deputy. And, immediately his spidey sense is going off, and he's looking around, and he's like, don't think we should keep our stuff in the car. And I'm like, okay. And so like we take our stuff and like we roll in and we get in the room and like complete dump. Like I'm like, what is this? Like this is like nasty. Like it was just like really bad. And so I'm like, and my buddy, he's like, dude, he's like, this is like a one of those, you know, transient places. He says, I saw, he said, cause from his thing, I saw like a pimp and like 3 like prostitutes. He's like, I already know.
I could already tell the vibes, you know?
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, yeah, we need to hop out of here. So I go.
The other hints when they let you pay cash for a room. Yeah. Okay. So it's not a place you want to be.
So I go to the front desk and I'm like, okay, we need our money back. We're out of here. Like we didn't stay in the room. Like we're this is just not good for us. You know, I told the lady, like, we're in the military. We got lots of gear, like high value. Like we just don't want to, we're going to bounce. And then the lady looks at me and she goes, but you used it already. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, it was like, oh, that right there. I was like, we're done, like out of here. I didn't even care. I think it was like $100 or something like that. I'm like, all right, let's bounce, dude. Cause like that told me all I needed to know. I'm like, okay. When we kept driving for, I don't know, a couple hours, I don't know where we ended up with. It was some like nice, Holiday Inn or something, you know, it was modest. But it was not like trashy. And I told the front desk guy, I was like, dude, yeah, we were in this place, you know, in Odessa. And he's like, oh, like when someone looks at you and they're like, oh, like Odessa's really
full of other really seedy towns that you could actually end up on the way to either California or Florida. So I was already like, oh my gosh, because there's some really bad towns in history that you would not, sundown towns. There's towns that you would not want to, and they'll tell you, oh, you little brown girl, you should not be here. Like, you should not be here after 6 p.m. I'm like, what? Like, now? I was with my daughter. It was 2014 in Mississippi. I got told that of like, you better get your brown, you know what, out of here. Like, go on. I was like, okay. Like, I ran off the gas station.
But you were in the Army too, right?
I was.
Yeah. What did you do in the Army?
I was a combat engineer.
Combat engineer.
Blew stuff up.
Yeah. That's awesome. How long did you serve?
86 to 92.
Wow. Was that all active duty time?
No, it was 2 years active, and whatever the balance was, I was in the reserves.
Okay. So how did you like the reserves?
Hated it.
Well,
hated it.
How do you like the reserves?
I'm still in technically, so I have to refrain from
your real thoughts. So we'll hear it in a couple years.
Yeah, all I remember was I thought it was not that bad a deal. I'm like, okay, well, you know, 1 weekend a month, I could deal with that. And then the 2 weeks during the year, whatever. I mean, that was actually better. The weekends were brutal.
Yeah.
And I think like when I got my check for doing the one weekend, it was like $78.
Oh my God.
Like it was so bad.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say, I do love the serving our country, you know, because I do think that's like important. And I also, like, I chose to be an officer because I want to serve the people that serve this country. And I think that's what a lot of other officers that I've come across don't realize is that, you know, we're serving people in addition to serving our country. And I think when you have that misalignment, it causes a lot of friction and a lot of potential issues. But I will say, like, the people that I've worked with, like, that, hands down, probably one of the best people that I've come in contact with. It's just like unfortunate that there's an entire organization or entity that's bigger that you can't really, you know, pinpoint, you know, an exact thing. It's like, I don't know, like what do they call it, a systemic thing or something like that. But anyway, I wouldn't change anything, you know, about it. I would still do it, but that's a risk, you know.
I loved my time in there. I mean, it was good for me at that age. It provided me the ability to go to college and get out a lot of youthful energy that probably I wouldn't have spent productively.
Yeah.
I liked it. I mean, I liked painting my face. I liked blowing stuff up, and I liked running around and screaming and
show me your war face.
Whatever, you know, I like that part of it. Like everybody talks about, like you see all these things about basic training, and like, you know, there was guys, I remember one of the first nights, you know, you're in the bay and like you hear all these guys crying, and I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing hard about this.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I remember the first day in basic training, uh, we had our duffel bags on, right after the Shark Tank, and they're all yelling at you and you go in your bay. And we got our duffels on and we're all in a front leaning rest. We're all like basically like a push up position and just like being yelled at, told to keep it and not move. And you got people like dipping. And then like oh gosh, it was like 45 minutes or something like that. They held us there. And like there's like people, like grown men crying. Like,
Okay, I will say the tear gas, because I only know about the Navy. That's the only experience I've had of like them having to get tear gas as part of their like exit training or whatever. So the girls, like when they were saying like, I felt like I couldn't breathe, I was like, okay, I feel some serious empathy because I would not be handling feeling like I was pepper sprayed. That's where they had me. I can physicality wise do much of what's asked of like all of his stuff, but I was like, nah, that's where you get me. I'm like, I do not want to be sprayed. I do not want to be sprayed in the face. Did it hurt the dog to do that?
So no, they didn't spray us in the face. It was a gas chamber.
Yeah.
Oh, you got sprayed. Oh, because
we went in a room probably twice the size of this.
Yeah.
One squad at a time. So 10, 12 guys.
Yeah.
Just
and you could see the the kind of little colored smoke floating around, and then they just told you take off your mask. And, and you took off your mask, and then as soon as everybody took off their mask, and
so what I've seen is they look like they got sprayed.
So that may be the MPs, because I know the MPs, they go through training, and it's just like how cops, they OC spray them.
Yes, because that looked like pepper spray. It looked like they got sprayed directly in the eye.
It was pretty bad.
Yeah, I've got OC sprayed one time because I used to be a detention officer like back in the day. You know what I mean? And like I went to the academy and like they sprayed you in the face, and that was pretty horrible.
Was it worse than the chamber?
It was worse than the chamber. Yeah, I thought the chamber, it was, maybe they didn't do the chamber that bad because I went in there and like I did feel like congestion, like it burned, but like it was one of those things, once I got out and you're flapping your arms and all the snot's coming out and everything, like, you're fine. With the OC spray, I felt that for like the entire day. And even like the next day, like you couldn't even get back in the shower because like it would just reactivate. It was in your eyes. Yeah, I wouldn't do that again. But I'm curious because, I saw some posts that you did and you had like a lot of people at a seminar and, you were like, when I asked you about it, you were doing like the sales training and whatnot, like that for the average person, that's risky. I mean, that's a big move. You know what I mean? Like,
move.
Can you kind of share a little bit about that?
So we put together basically a workshop for real estate agents.
Yeah.
And there was a panel and a couple of guest speakers, and I kind of just emceed the whole thing and did some speaking during their lunchtime and kind of started and stopped it. But I've done that since I started doing that kind of stuff in like the early 2000s. And it's, I was a lot younger then. I was the top sales guy at the company I was working for. And they had asked me if I would, and I was like shattering records. Like, I mean, they investigated me for fraud because they were like, there's no way somebody could sell this much without like fraud. Wow. So, fast forward a year or two, they're like, hey, would you speak at the national convention and just be like, just let everybody know what you do and how you think you're so successful. And I was like in my mid 30s, just thought I was the biggest deal ever. I mean, and didn't prepare. So like 11 o'clock at the night before, I don't know if you guys have ever been to like a national company sales convention, but it's basically just a big drink fest.
Mm-hmm.
So at like 11 o'clock the night before I'm supposed to speak, I'm like, get some note cards out. And I'm like, all right, let me figure out what I'm going to talk about tomorrow. And it was kind of weird at first, but once I started talking, it helps when you know so much about what you're talking about.
Yeah.
If somebody were to say, hey, I need you to give a half-hour speech on your kids, like you'd be like, I could go 3 hours, and you wouldn't be uncomfortable about it just because you know everything about them, and you have this confidence, like, well, I'm just talking about something that I know, and so it really wasn't too bad. But I had played sports and not that there was big crowds in sports, but I'd played sports. And so there was some times where I was exposed to, booing or cheering or doing a good job, doing a bad job. And I don't, I guess I'm blessed that I come from a pretty modest background. Everything in my life really is blessing. Like everything's a step forward. And when we talk about risk, I guess I've never looked at things as a risk, and to me, it's a decision.
Mm-hmm.
And there's consequences that come with every decision, but there's also consequences from not making a decision. And I think I'm just wired that there's a larger risk in me not trying something than there is me trying and failing.
Yeah.
Because to me, we were actually at a happy hour last night with a group of people, kind of a business happy hour, and we were talking about that concept. And, to me, I could, if my days ended today, there would be no regret. Like, I have done everything. I've not left a word unsaid. I've tried everything I wanted to try. I've done everything I wanted to do. I would be fearful and I would be regretful if I were in my last days and I said, I wish I had done this. I wish I had said that. I wished I had tried this. To me, that's the risk. Yeah. The risk is not in trying. The risk is not trying.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to go to that, but my kid was like, I have a concert tonight. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, he plays the clarinet, and so he had a band concert, and I'm like, why didn't you? He has ADHD like me, so I totally understand why he didn't tell me, because the teacher was supposed to email and whatnot. But so I saw the text and I was like, man, they're having a good time. Like, but you're having another one Thursday, right?
Correct.
Okay, so I'm planning on making that one. Hopefully, nothing else pops up. But it was funny that you said that my mind's just going again. Something about, oh gosh, I had something. It was right there. I was gonna say something and I totally spaced on it. About not taking a risk. That's okay. So yeah, not taking a risk, or not looking back and being like, gosh, I wish I would have done that. That was exactly the reason. Like me in the military thing, I joined late. I was like 27, like when I went, which is late for military.
It's 25. We were late too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, I do not want to be one of those old guys down the road that like, man, what I could have joined, but I didn't, whatever. I just no, I just got to do it. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's so weird that you said that. Yeah, I wouldn't take anything back on that. Do you have anything to say on the sales seminar side of things? Because I know you have done something similar to that, and kind of like a risk.
I did a lot of one-on-one calls. So my dad passed away from COVID, 2021. So I was in insurance in Colorado, and I picked up and went home, and took a little bit of a break from insurance. At the same time, social media was going off for me, both talking about COVID and everything back home with our governor and whatnot. Those were going very viral. And then he did pass away. So very, very quickly, I went from like 40K people to almost 400K people. And I was giving marketing advice, basically everything I had learned at that Blue social media app, of how to convert, of how to ask for business, how to have a call for action, how to have a beginning and middle end of every TikTok, of every Instagram reel. And so I was helping a lot of people go viral, but I would do it on a one-on-one session. So he's not the first, but he's a good friend. So he's like, Rachel, why haven't you not scaled that differently? And that was kind of my issue. So from a personal perspective and a business perspective of your advice on that, I was booking between 75 and 80 calls a week. I am a mom of two. It was getting crazy. And I see his idea. I see his vision of that being that different format. That is an isolated incident. I can repurpose those videos. There's a lot of things I can do with that. That would be such a time saver for me instead of those one-on-one calls, which I could still do. But obviously I was underselling myself if I was booking that many. So, and that's reality of business too, of kind of figuring out what that might look like for me, because like you kind of did for that group, I give a lot of free advice, and I want to not just give everything away. I want to also know my worth and what I add and what I bring to the table. If I can get somebody to go viral, and I have lots of times with over 1 million views, that is something that I should be selling, that advice, that marketability and help, because I'm genuine. I really do want people to succeed. So how would you go about scaling something like that? Or what would you say to add to that?
I'm going to back up a little bit.
Okay.
So I love helping people. I really do. And I have done it. I've done it in person, one-to-one. I've done it in groups. I had a website that was a subscription-based website that people could just come on and they could watch videos that were categorized, and they were short, usually 16 to 15 minutes, so they were bite-sized things. My reinvigoration, my re-engagement with all of this in the past year has really been because there are so many people out there giving bad advice with such confidence that I'm frustrated and I'm disappointed, and I have been meeting more and more small business owners that have said, yeah, I lost $15,000. I lost $60,000. I paid this guy, $6,000 a month for 6 months, and my business was worse off when he left. And so I really haven't nailed down the strategy. I do know that I will talk to every small business owner that I can possibly talk to. I have one that's coming on in March that is, I'm not going to get paid anywhere near what I'm worth or what the advice is worth, but I think for the short term, I need to help the business community understand and have some confidence that there are people out there that will help, that are going to help share the knowledge. Knowledge is mistakes. I've been in the real business world since I was 24, which would be 32 years ago. And I've learned a lot of things. I've went through a lot of training. I've seen a lot of trends. I've made a lot of mistakes. The challenge with what's going on right now is you have a two-pronged sort of problem with there's a lot of people giving bad advice, and they've gone through some kind of internet training program on how to sell their program, and they're just about selling their program. They're not about helping businesses. I believe that if I'm going to help a business, and this is my challenge with where I want to go with all this, I could put together a 10-step program, a 12-step program, whatever that number might be. The challenge is if I have a brand new business owner in one industry, it's going to be a very different approach than I would take with a business owner who might have been in an industry for 15 years and hasn't been able to progress with technology or progress with trends in the industry. And so it's difficult because if you try to scale and help mass amounts of people, the efficacy of what you're doing is going to be lower. And if you try to help businesses one-off with really what they need help with, you obviously have far less of a reach. So, what's the balance between those two things is really, and that's kind of what I'm trying to build now is how can I lay down some very fundamental things that anybody can use and then be able to follow up on that with more customized, now that we have these fundamental things, what does your business need? Because even in the real estate industry, the biggest impact I had was not in teaching them how to write a contract or how to negotiate a free refrigerator. It really was, how do I take my real estate business? And you and I talked about this in the insurance industry. How do I run this like a real business? I've been fortunate enough to be CEO of 2 different companies. I've owned 6 small businesses, and then I've been in executive leadership for 2 Fortune 500 companies. And you learn a lot from that. You learn a lot from people who are farther along in that corporate journey. The benefit that I came away with was I can run my small business. I can run my insurance agency or my power washing company or my auto body shop the same way that a Fortune 500 company runs. I just have to understand where I get the resources. I can't hire a VP of finance. I can't hire a VP of sales. But what I can do is I can hire a great accountant. I can hire a Fractile sales manager or sales VP, a Fractile CFO if I need to. And so, when we look at these trends and getting people into a room, I love doing it, but it really has to be more of an introduction into philosophically how am I going to approach this business? And then secondarily, how do we follow up to make sure that these things are customized to what you do? Because I really genuinely would never want to push something on somebody that I didn't believe was 100% good for them.
Right. And you hit the nail on the head, and we talk about it, whether it's submitting. So one of the issues that I have talked about is deck pages, how we choose to submit through Canopy Connect. That's not going to work for an older consumer. They're never going to do that. And I've explained that to my boss. why am I going to bring up something that they're never going to use? I'm going to bring it up to them how they can understand it. Here's the email that you're going to send this to me. They can take a picture. So there's ways around it, but I would venture to say the same thing with all of the marketing advice. And that was what I loved about the personalized one-on-one attention. If it's a 22-year-old girl who's selling tumbler cups, that is a very different audience and reach than a 47-year-old man who's doing lawn care, right? We're just not trying to reach the same people either. So when we talk about sponsored ads or paid ads, we aren't looking to fish from the same ponds. So I completely agree, and that makes perfect sense of why it's still an issue always of how do you give your most self, right? How do you give your most to those businesses who truly need that connection and that assistance, but not to the point that you're watering it down and leaving it less saturated for everybody else, or giving just a regurgitated certain steps, which I agree wholeheartedly. And I feel like I've run into the same issue of hitting that wall of, well, then where does that leave me? And so I'm kind of thinking, just spitballing here, of different tiers. Having a basic package, a very, very affordable baseline. This is, if I had to do it all over again today, this is how I would get myself seen. Next tiered package, and then that top tiered package being that one-on-one connection. I don't think I'm ever going to be somebody who charges marketing guru prices, because it's not me. It's not who I am. But I do think I was charging too low to be booking out that much. So I do want that happy medium price-wise. But maybe that's how I like the building blocks of scaling it that way and start from there and see how it goes. I love that you're all about failing forward, because that was 100% my dad's testimony. And you said something earlier that like it was weird. Like my dad said almost this exact same thing of, I've lived a good life. He was a salesman my whole life. I've done everything. I've gone everywhere I wanted to go. I've provided everything I wanted to provide for you and your brother. I only have a little brother. I've done everything I wanted to do. So if I go, I don't fear death. I fear leaving y'all behind. So, I bring him up on every podcast, but it's a huge reason why I had chose this role. I've never done life insurance before. I've been PNC for 7 years. So the life insurance is a new aspect, but I directly got handed that situation for about 4 or 5 years ago. So it's just one of those things where it hit my family personally, where I do feel like I'm going to advocate it and scream it from the rooftops. Every gentleman, every dad, every mom should be looking at owning their own policy. If that's the one message I get out for this podcast, of not your work policy, own your own life insurance policy, because it can never be taken away from you. We've all had that experience. You've had that experience of getting a pink slip you did not expect, or things happen, people remerge, and then all of a sudden you don't have that insurance and you're 42, and you could have had this insurance since you were 34, my age right now. And so just speaking on that, and that's my passion point of talking about it on every call. I mean it with my whole heart. That $750K changed my mom's life for not just the year after my dad died, for 3 years after he died. So I think it's just an important talking point, and why we do what we do in general. And we all have that insurance background and love for helping people. So we super appreciate all of your advice. What other, you feel like we're missing something? Is there anything else that we didn't hit on bold moves wise, or anything else? Because I know you had a question, and then I feel you.
Oh yeah, no. I was just gonna say, like, just jumping on the life insurance thing, because my wife, she sells life insurance over the phone like all day.
And she's great at it. Go
Yeah,
get it.
oh, dude. So she just got promoted. She just got promoted again. So now she's at the agent level, because the way they started off, they're like, okay, first you're like this,
It's USA.
BDR, you're taking, setting appointments, cold calling, getting beat up, and then you're like this next role. So now she's at the role, and like she was like number 3 on the board. Like when I'm like, dude, I'm like, she's selling more than I did when I was, because I worked there too, and I'm like, what? That's awesome. But anyway, she talks to people that are older, I mean, they're like, like I would say in the 60, 70 range, and they're trying to get life insurance because they didn't. And they're like having these conversations. They're like, I wish I would have done it when I was like 30, like there's like, I want, this, or I want that, and I can't. And it's like, yeah, because health wise, they're broken, and that just happens. You get older and you break. Like, this is like a fact of life. I mean, very few people make it to like 80 or 90 and like fit as a whistle and like not have anything. I mean, like, God bless you if you're that, but like a lot of us aren't. But I was gonna ask you, so like, how many times a year do you do like this seminar? Was it like a one-off, or is it like an annual thing, or I'm just really?
It was a one-off. I really would. My goal this year is to do 4.
Okay.
So of varying sizes, some might be 20. So that was my first quarter one. I have a second quarter one lined up. I will probably, because some of them I'll be a guest and some of them I'll put on myself. I'm huge into goals and planning, and I'm inherently very undisciplined. So my life has to be very structured, or just nothing gets done. So my goal planning is a little bit different. So I'd really like to do a relatively large event, October.
Nice.
Yeah, and I'd love for that to be in the 80 to 100 people range. It'll probably be a day and a half, so it's a pretty big commitment. But I also don't just do financial goals. So when I do goal setting, and this is the way I've always done it with groups, people that I lead, people I train, would be, we look at, obviously, we look at the finance, we look at business, we look at health, we look at relationships, we look at, your spirituality, whatever that means to you. It doesn't have to be God necessarily. Some people, look to something. It's just really giving outside of yourself and understanding that there's a bigger purpose in how you're connected. So we really do spend time setting all of those goals together because all of them affect each other. If you have terrible health, you're going to miss work. You're not going to have the energy that your clients deserve, and your work will suffer.
Hmm.
If you focus only on work, and I know this, from experience, your family life suffers, your relationship with your loved ones suffer, your relationship with your children suffer. If you're only spending time, nurturing your personal relationships, your finances are going to suffer because you're not doing what you need to do professionally. So that will do that. And then, so I probably just need to pick up one more event or put on one more event during the year. But I like them. They're challenging to put on. And for me, there's different challenges at this stage in life. I'm like I said, I'm 56. I've done everything professionally that I ever wanted to do. I went into a professional situation about a year ago, and, they were all fired up about winning trips and awards and plaques. And I'm like,
Been there, done that, got the t-shirt.
I really, with all respect, just want to come to work. And
Yeah.
I didn't want to say it out loud, but I really just want to do the bare minimum of what I need to do to meet my commitment to the company.
And that's fair, but we've talked a lot about that, of you reach a certain point, and I look to that with admiration because he's a little bit in the future for me, and he has such good boundaries, such good human to work ratio boundaries, where sometimes I can feel like the giving tree. Sometimes I'm like too much, and then you end up being a stump. I feel like you are a good duality. You're always there, you're always doing what you need to be doing, but within reason. He's never doing too much.
Yeah,
You have that good fine line. I'm not there yet. I'm too scared of everything still in corporate world. I feel that way.
Yeah, because we talked about this before, setting boundaries. You know what I mean? Because there are some employers that will just walk all over it and go beyond your boundary. And if it affects my family and it starts to affect whether or not I'm going to be able to see my kids or my wife, then that's a problem. Yeah. So I think it's just a matter of understanding that and really going, wait, you said in the future, you call me old?
I'm not old. You're a little bit in the future. I'm saying work-wise, I admire that part of you because I'm not there yet. I'm still fearful. And I respect that you're not.
My ADHD brain.
Did you call me old?
Old?
I didn't know call you old.
Call me fat. No.
No, priorities. Years in the future, not 12. Jeez, Louise.
But the reality of it is, you look back, and I can look back on a lot of experiences in my life. There's always been another job.
Yeah,
you're right.
Always. There's always been another job. You know what there never will be again? My son scoring 2 goals in a playoff soccer game.
Exactly.
Choose wisely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We work and we work. And I think a lot of times, if people just took the time to listen more to old people instead of make fun of us. But, there's so many times where I've worked hard because it was all about the plaque and the trip and the promotion. And at the end of the day, I've had multiple companies just walk in one day and be like, hey, great job. We're so sorry,
Mhm.
but we're closing down this, or we're restructuring, without a thought. When I came here to Arizona, I was hired to turn around. It was a turnaround of a Yellow Page company. And we did some digital marketing too, but it was primarily print advertising. And we crushed it and got the company to exactly where they wanted us to be. And one day they called me and they said, the HR person's going to be there. We're going to shut Arizona down. The first time it had been profitable in like 8 years. And so he comes in and I remember him sitting down in the couch in my office, and he said, how are you, Brian? I said, oh, not good. It's a tough day. And I looked at him and I said, it's a tough day for you, huh? Because, yeah, I really hate giving news like this. I said, oh, you're not giving the news, I am. I said, you're not talking to my team. I said, you can hand out the packets, but you're not talking to my team. And he goes, well, and I said, this is non-negotiable. And I just remember thinking to myself, I was okay because the position I had been put in, my severance, I was there to turn it around and leave anyway. My severance was more than fair, but I had at that point had about 15 sales reps who were going to get basically 1 month to 3 months worth of income. One of them had just bought her first house. And so that's a life moment where you get perspective on where's my loyalty really should be.
Mm.
Because in a moment when they decide financially it doesn't make sense anymore, they don't care about all the plaques. They don't care about how much over quota you were, how much extra you sold for them. And that's why when we talk about risk, to take a risk, to take a new opportunity at a new place, or take a risk to start a business or buy a business, what's the real risk? I'm in much better position if I know what's going on in my own company and I have to drive Uber at night to make ends meet than I am crushing sales quota and assuming everything's fine only to walk in on a Monday and get handed an envelope.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. Where can people find you?
I'm on Instagram as The Real Shark of Sales, Facebook as MJ Cordova. You can go to my website, which is sharkbusinesssolutions.com. And that's really a good place because you can get to know a little bit more about me, the kind of industries I've worked with and the kind of things that I do. So the website's probably the best way.
Cool. Yeah, we'll also have a special guest page for you. We'll have some links on there. So if anyone's listening and doesn't know where to go for that, just
easy
yep,
for 'em.
yeah, go to the boldmovspodcast.az.com and we're gonna have a special page for you.
I'm going to have the most special page.
The biggest shark.
Awesome.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. No. This has been great. I really appreciate you coming on the show and kind of giving us some insight and some nuggets, like truly. And also, if anyone's listening, if they need to mitigate risk, they can always talk to us because we mitigate risk as well. Just got to throw that in there. But yeah.
Don't use college words.
Don't use college.
Our 8th grade words.
Yeah. All right, my friend. Well, we're going to call it for today. And this has been the Bold Moves Podcast. Any last words?
Thank you. I appreciate you guys. You're great people. And I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you being great people.
Well, yes. And thank you for coming on. We definitely appreciate it.
Awesome. Cool. All right. See you guys later.